best to
save it.
That bus running up.
Jesus. Oh my goodness. Jeez, what? Damn it, the bus is leaving. What? I thought the bus was leaving. Finally found one. Oh.
Where's Graham?
Things inside the cabin. There's trees and things whizzing past us.
Whizzing.
Yeah, 20 kilometres an hour maximum speed. So it's not really whizzing.
Whizzing is
stretching. No worries, enjoy your tour.
Thank you.
And your lunch, it's a great place for lunch sitting up here.
Thank you.
No worries.
On the coast. Just one moment, folks. Excuse me. Can you always keep on the left-hand side of the road, please? Thank you. And what happened was the skipper kept coming. He thought that he had plenty of water in front of him. His helmet just on the other side of it. That would be the best viewing position for watching whales during September, October, November. So if you come back during those months, I'm going to try and get that spot, sit there for a couple of hours, you'll see literally dozens of whales going past. And on the left here, this is called Catherine Bay. It's one of our favourite bays to come to as well. When my beautiful wife turned 60 on the 11th of April, we came over to Rottnest. That was a Thursday. We had my daughter, her husband, and my two beautiful little granddaughters on board. We had 2 nights there. And Catherine Bay is always very good for catching crays. Well, we set the pots the first night. Guess what? The next morning we had none. Using our service today. You've been a beautiful crowd, very responsive, and I do appreciate that. Thank you very much, folks, and I do wish you well for the rest of the afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. At this time of the day, also they accumulate underneath these big Moreton Bay figs. You might see a few drunk quokkas around the place, folks, if they stay here too long. Folks, if you do want something to eat, if you go straight ahead and turn left, that will take you into the main settlement area. We're just going to go very softly here. If people can keep an eye out on the left, that would be appreciated. This lady, can you encourage that one to move? Can you encourage that one to move? Thank you. Righto. Oh, very good job, young lady.
Oh,
Right.
no,
See,
no.
that's what they do. Let me know if it goes anywhere near the wood. Very, very strategic during the Second World War. It's where the women of the Royal Australian Navy were accommodated. Would you believe? There were 500
Thank you very much. Well done.
I'll see you this afternoon.
Enjoy their train trip and the Gunson Tunnel tour.
Yes.
And your lunch as well.
Yes.
That's a good start. So folks, what we're going to be doing now, we're going to be heading back to what's called the main bus stop. We're going to go across the causeway, and then we're going to start our commentary tour proper from there. But just a few minutes out, I will start to give you some history about the island, just to give you the background. And folks, what I'm also going to do throughout the afternoon, with your permission, I'm going to include some personal stories about Rottnest, because would you believe, I started coming here when I was 2 years of age, and that was 69 years ago. So had a lot of fantastic holidays here. My mum used to come across and hire accommodation with some of her girlfriends and their kids. In those days, the dads were always at work. So we stayed in some of the accommodation in Thomson Bay. That was the only place where there was accommodation at that point. Plus the Kingstown barracks area, but there was no Geordie Bay, Longreach or Phase Bay accommodation at that point. So it was all pretty basic, and we stayed in that accommodation pretty much every year through until I was about 13. Then Mum and Dad bought a little 26-foot boat, and we would pretty much always be up at a place called Rocky Bay. I'm going to show you that this afternoon. And we would have especially over Christmas and New Year, we'd have 3 weeks on the boat. 4 people, Mum, Dad, myself and one of my mates. I think we only had about 4 mutinies during all those years that we went over. But it was a fantastic way to grow up, fantastic holidays, and lots of stories of fishing and crayfishing and sharks and marlin and all the rest of it. So that's what we're going to do, folks. Incorporate some of those stories, and I think that will hopefully really bring it to life for you. But just a show of hands, who has been to Rottnest before? Just put your hand up. Oh, couldn't see any hands there. Okay, so everybody pretty much new to Rottnest Island. Fantastic. Now folks, also throughout the course of the afternoon with the commentary, if you do want to chat, that's fine, but just please, if you can keep it nice and low, just to respect others around you that do want to listen, but by all means it is absolutely fine to have a bit of a chat if you're just doing that very quietly. Is that fair enough, everybody?
Yes.
Yeah, all good? Thank you. actually looking for a ship that had been lost a couple of years prior to that. A ship called the Gilt Dragon. That ship was actually lost about 117 kilometres north of here. So he really didn't do much else other than mark Rottnest on the map and then continue on his merry way up to Indonesia. And then it wasn't until 1696 we had a chap called Willem de Vlaming. I remember him from my high school years learning about this chap. 1696, came back to Rottnest, spent 6 days here, absolutely loved it. He was also part of the Dutch East India Trading Company, as was Samuel Volkerson, and they were traders, colonisers and explorers. Spent the 6 days here, really fell in love with Rottnest and referred to it as paradise on earth. Now, he did see these little furry creatures running around and he mistook them for large rats. And would you believe, gave Rottnest the very uncharming name of Rat's Nest. Horrible name. The Dutch version of that is Rotten Nest, which is not much better. And the Western version is, of course, Rottnest, or for those of us that come to love the island, we just simply refer to it as Rotto. So the island was separated several thousand years ago when the sea levels rose, separated from the mainland some 19 kilometres away. And at the same time there were 3 islands to our south that were formed, those being Garden Island, Karnak Island and Penguin Island. And then in 1829 we had European settlement. What they wanted to do at that point was to establish Rottnest as a fishing and a farming community. And the fishing was fantastic, and still is to this day, by the way. But the farming was terrible, and that was because of the very poor quality infertile soil on the island. So they ended up shutting down the agriculture and the farming, and they turned Rottnest into an Aboriginal prison for the next nearly 100 years. And there were some 4,000 Aboriginal men and boys that were incarcerated on the island. Very sadly, there were 369 deaths in custody, mainly to do with disease and poor nutrition, but also very sadly 5 were hung. So it is a very sad and dark part of our history. And if you do want to get all of the detail on that, folks, I'm going to point out to you our museum as we go past the main bus stop. We've got some of our fantastic volunteer guides in there. In fact, similar to those people that you saw up at Oliver Hill, we've got around 350 volunteer guides on the island. And by and large, these are people that maybe came to Rottnest with their mums and dads. And then when they had their own families, just got to watch this young person here on his bike. I'm going to talk about the cyclists in a few minutes. Came across with their kids, and if they're like my wife, Rennie and I, we now bring our grandkids over. We've got a boat, we come over quite regularly, and we love bringing our family across to the island. So the present was actually shut in 1933. That was to do with the unrest in Europe in the lead up to World War II. And we had a chap called Captain Hussey, and our beautiful little train is actually named after Captain Hussey. And he was responsible for establishing the first line of defence at Rottnest to protect Fremantle Harbour and also Perth City. Now, Fremantle Harbour was very strategic. It actually had 170 submarines in there at one point, mainly US, British and Dutch. Now the building you can see, the construction work there, folks, that is the old Lodge Wadjemup. The lodge originally was the boys' reformatory home, and then when the war finished, it was opened up to holiday makers coming over, holiday makers accommodation. At the moment, it's about halfway through a $40 million redevelopment, and for a long time we couldn't really see any progress, but just the last 6 months or so, you can absolutely see the progress on a week-to-week basis. And that should be really lovely by the time it's finished. Now folks, we are going to be stopping later on at a on the left-hand side here, folks, as we complete our tour in another hour and a half, hour and 3/4, there's usually quokkas accumulating under these trees. So that's only a very short 2-minute walk back from the main bus stop where I will drop you off at. Now on the right-hand side there, folks, you'll see our settlers' cemetery. There are 17 graves there, and very sadly 5 of them are young kids aged from 9 days to 10 years. Most of the deaths in those days were related to disease, poor nutrition. Wadjemup is well off completion. There is some activity which is fantastic. And just where those people are standing directly ahead, folks, just to the left.
Quokka!
Yeah, just to the left is the old mill and hay store, which is now our museum. And again, that is manned by some of our fantastic volunteer guides.
Quokka, you... Quokka. I thought you were going to ram it.
Folks, now just to the right here, this is our little mini golf setup. And originally, so if that little boy, can he just keep his voice down a bit, please? Just on the right there, folks. Originally, the big limestone quarry, that's where that was, and the limestone from there was where a lot of the cottages and heritage buildings were built. When they first built them, they did paint them very bright white, whitewashed they were, very bright on the eyes. And so what somebody that was very smart came up with the idea, let's put some rusty nails in with some of the paint, and they changed it to that orange or ochre colour. You can just see it on the left there with that little church, and that made it much easier on the eye. So if you do see these buildings that are orange, folks, that's the background. The little building on the right hand side is our picture hall. Originally that was the Army lecture hall. So when the war years were on and the preparation, it's a very old style picture hall now. It's got the old deck chairs, and it's a real experience if you're staying on the island for a few more nights. Now just to the right there, that is our light commercial area. That is run by Programs. They do a fantastic job. Everything from fixing roads, picking up luggage for the holiday makers, doing the cleaning in between time, running the bags back, and to be honest, about 100 other jobs, too many to mention. If you look to the right there, you'll see 2 very large yellow generators. So that's 2 out of the 8 that we've got on the island, helping to give us some power. And they work in conjunction with, at the moment, 8,000 solar panels at the airport and a very large wind turbine out at Geordie Bay. We'll see that on the way back. But the very good news is that within the current state budget, we're going to get a doubling of the number of solar panels, so that will go to 16,000. And the big wind turbine out at Geordie will be replaced replaced with 2 smaller but more efficient wind turbines. So by the time all of that happens, we'll have about 75% renewable energy on the island, which will be great.
So what's going to happen to the big wind turbine?
The big one, the big turbine will come down, that will be replaced.
And where's that going to go though?
No idea.
Probably in the landfill.
Because it's 20 years old, it's probably going to be dismantled, and that will be it. On the left here, folks, behind these little yellow cottages, is the Samphire Hotel. It's a beautiful 64-room property, 5-star, and situated right on the water's edge. So if you're looking for accommodation, folks, that would be a good suggestion. Okay. Now the road that we're coming into now, folks, this is called Parker Point Road. This is where the residents of the island, most of them live. It's about 150 of them altogether. People involved in activities like hospitality, rangers, nurses, police, fire brigade, and we have one school teacher teaching kids from year 1 through to year 6. And I always think, how good would it be to be a child over here going to school, finish at 3 o'clock, and you say to mum and dad, I'm just off to go and catch a couple of crays for dinner. How would that be? Fantastic. And people like myself commute. My wife, Rennie, also works here as well. We work about maybe 3 or 4 days every fortnight. And would you believe every couple of weeks she gets to be the operations manager over here and gets to be my boss? Again, nothing much changes, does it, fellas? No, she's a fantastic Swiss woman and mother to my 4 beautiful adult children. And we're now at a stage where we've got three grandkids, 2 granddaughters, 1 grandson, and that number will be growing soon. Just off to the left here, folks, is South Thomson accommodation, also referred to as Nappy Alley. These were all renovated about 15 months ago. And the ones right on the left, or on the extreme left, pretty much right on the water's edge, about 20 metres from the water. So, you know, you can just imagine waking up on a hot summer's morning, putting your bathers on, maybe grab a quick coffee, a bit of a stretch, and diving straight into that beautiful turquoise coloured water. Fantastic. Now folks, I don't know whether you've noticed, but we've got 1 or 2 cyclists on the island. Anybody notice? Now, this sort of weather, not too many, but I can tell you that in the summertime we have well over 4,000 cyclists on the island. And I can tell you as a result of that, all of the coach drivers are very heavily medicated. Let me clarify that, folks. Nothing that would sedate us, that wouldn't be right. But I can tell you that the high blood pressure medication is working a treat. Wahoo. And just to give you an idea of the different groups of cyclists, folks, firstly we've got our international friends, and a lot of these folks are used to riding or driving on the opposite side of the road, the right-hand side of the road where they come from. And they're pretty easy to spot, so if I get a chance, I'll always encourage them to move to the left, obviously for their own safety. Now the second category, and folks, with a bit of luck you might see some of these as we go around the island. It'll be patently obvious that these folks have not been on a bike for at least 25 years. And the way that they will identify themselves is that they do tend to throw themselves in front of the bus, and I can promise you I do my very best to avoid them. Third category, and I promise you this is true, these are people that have never been on a bike in their life. And they come to Rottnest and they see folks having fun, and they think, gee, that looks like a good idea. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. But I can tell you those categories 2 and 3, those that haven't been on a bike for 25 years plus, those that have never been on a bike, they are capable of the most incredible stunts, almost Cirque du Soleil style. Probably best depicted by this little yellow sign coming up on the left here. Can you see that? It's a very popular stunt, that one. Straight over the handlebars, usually happens within the first hour, and the result is never good. So, as a result of that, folks, we do have quite a busy nursing post. We've got a couple of resident nurses, and they are kept incredibly busy. And I'm not making light of the plight of the cyclists, but I'm mentioning that because if you are planning on staying on the island and getting a bike, then what we'd like you to do is put that helmet on, keep left, please don't put anything in your ears that will stop you from hearing a vehicle coming from behind. And then if you do that, you've got a really good chance of getting off the island alive, which would be awesome. So after all of that, folks, do you think a bus has ever hit a cyclist? Who says yes? Who says no? Yeah, the no's would be correct. The bus has never hit a cyclist. So I can tell you a lot of those darn cyclists have hit that bus. Now, Rottnest, folks, is an A-class reserve, a bit similar to a national park. What does that mean? It means that all plants and animals are protected. Some of the little creatures that we've got running around include goannas, or some people may know them as bobtail lizards.
Oh my goodness.
We've also got skink lizards. They're long, black and shiny. If they're quite large ones, we call them king skinks. They've got high intelligence when it comes to working out if they can cross the road or not. If there's any doubt, they'll just turn back and they'll try another time. But they're very, very smart. And the third one that we've got is called a dugite snake. They are deadly. They're the 13th most deadly snake on planet Earth, but with the cooler weather, we very, very rarely see them. Now, coming around this corner and up on that hill, folks, on the left, that little structure up there is an observation post that was used during the Second World War, and that was occupied 24/7. Their job was to identify boat traffic between Rottnest and Fremantle, work out if they were friendly or otherwise, and then they would let the big guns at Oliver Hill and also the 6-inch guns at Big Battery, just off to the left here, would let them know, and then the big guns would take over from there. But it was probably mentioned during your tour that none of the guns were ever fired in anger, but they were well practiced. If any contingency had ever arisen, we're pretty confident that the lads would have been able to take care of it. Having said that, there was an underlying fear that if Rottnest was overrun, because those big guns had a range of 28 kilometres, it would have meant that Fremantle Harbour and Perth City would indeed have been easy targets. And as we all know, that did not happen. There's a little island. I don't know whether any of you noticed when you came in, if you came in on the ferry, it's called Phillip Rock. It's very flat. There's nothing growing on it. It's on the left-hand side as you come in. Anybody notice that little island?
Yes.
Nothing growing on it. The reason for that is that when the big guns were getting set up, it was deemed that there's a lot of trees, similar to what you see on the left and right here on Phillip Rock, actually interfered with the line of sight of the big guns. So they sent out a couple of army explosives experts, and they literally blew the top of the island off, and nothing has grown back to this day. It's quite notable for fishermen because about 200 metres towards the mainland is one of the best King George whiting spots that you'll find on planet Earth. Monsters. In the distance, folks, that little knob of a headland that's called Parker Point. We're going to be talking about that in some detail when we get there. But in the meantime, if you look out to the left, you'll see a little island out there. That is in fact called Dyer Island. And it's the home of the Australian sea lions. It's only males that live there. The females live up north at a place called Durian Bay. That's 218 kilometres north. Now the girls are extremely obliging because they do swim down once a year for a big party. And you know what? To extend the species, when that party's finished, the girls swim all the way back and the boys just laze on the beach and go and catch an occasional fish. What do you think, ladies?
Sounds good.
Sounds good for the fellas, I reckon. Oh, amazing. Now just off to the left here, this is called Henrietta Rocks. This is the site of the only visible wreck on the island. An old barge that was being towed around the West End way back in 1939. And the tow line broke and it ended up here. If you just look out to the left now, you'll see what's left of it. Not much, is it, folks? I mean, you'd hardly call that the Titanic. This little bay on the left here, it's called Porpoise Bay. If you look further into the distance, you'll see a lot of seaweed at Porpoise Bay, so it's not a recommended swimming spot. But it was actually incorrectly named by Samuel Wilkinson, the chap that discovered the island, because we don't have porpoises at Rottnest, we have bottlenose dolphins. But Porpoise Bay is a fantastic place for fishing and catching squid. And going back probably about close to 20 years ago now, my wife and I were on our boat with our kids, and Reddy went off with some of the kids and for a 3-hour walk. As a good Swiss person, that's what they do. And I brought the dinghy down to catch some squid. And what you do is you cut your little outboard motor, you drift side on, need about a 6 to 8 knot breeze. You've got your rod, your line, little squid lure. It's in the shape of a little plastic fish with some hooks in it. This particular day, had a couple of nice squid on board, and I was just looking around and admiring the beauty of this place, and really, I guess, reflecting on how grateful I was that I could come to this beautiful paradise so regularly. And folks, you will not believe what happened next. It took me completely by surprise. Within 2 metres of the dinghy, a huge male seal leapt out of the water, and I promise you, just before it re-entered the water, it winked at me. I nearly leapt into the water, folks, straight out of my dinghy. I had a rush of adrenaline, similar to one that I had when I ran with the bulls as a 22-year-old in Spain in 1976. It was electrifying. Anybody know that festival?
Yes.
You run down the main street, you've got all these bulls chasing you, and yeah, there were 12 of us that did it. We all survived, thank goodness. Would I do it again?
No.
Nope. But anyway, that surge of adrenaline, it actually reminded me of Pamplona running with the bulls in 1976. It was amazing. And I know where the seal was headed, because there was a boat on a mooring about 100 metres away that was cleaning fish. So that seal thought to himself, I think I can see a free feed coming. So righto folks, there are a total of 63 beaches and 20 bays. Many of those bays we're going to see this afternoon. Absolutely stunning. If you look down to your right there in the little valley, folks, you'll see some little trees that have got some protective mesh around them to stop the quokkas from eating them. These have been planted by our fantastic volunteer guides, as have the ones on the left here that are a few years older. But this is all part of our reforestation program at Rottnest. And the goal each year is to plant 20,000 new trees. The reason that we're doing that is because that over a long period of time we've had some pretty severe bushfires, and a lot of the foliage was wiped out. So if you're doing okay, folks, so yeah, I'm doing okay. Thanks, Kev.
Thanks, Kev.
Beautiful. No one's gone to sleep after their lunch. That's good. If you see someone going to sleep, folks, just get the old elbow in them. Say, come on, don't miss this. Now, this little plaque here on the left, folks, that's one of our 7 walking trails, covering a total of 52 kilometres. They're all designed by our fantastic rangers to take you from one bay to the next without having to trudge through bush and without getting lost. And by far the most popular time of the cooler months, April through to October. We're going to be coming out of that road directly ahead of us, probably about 7 minutes. This is called the Parker Point Loop. This corner, most of the drivers refer to this as Confusion Corner, because quite often in summer you might have 40, 50, 60 cyclists here, all looking at their maps trying to work out where the heck are we. But it really is quite simple. We come in this way, we pop out the other end. It's a bit like a sausage machine. You cannot get lost. Temperature okay, folks? Not too cold? All good? Okay. This area that we're coming into now is called Watson Glade. John Watson was the chap that used to he'd bring the lads out here fishing and camping. Very good camping conditions. Pretty much out of the very strong southwesterly and southerly breezes, and very close to Parker Point for fantastic swimming and fishing. And the trees that you see here, folks, these are called Rottnest Island tea tree, or Melaleuca. And these are pretty much what covered the island when it was first discovered. And we're just approaching one of the highlights of the tour, folks, just around the corner, called Parker Point. Folks, I am going to stop the bus and I am going to open the doors, but please, that's so you get a better quality photo, but please don't get off the bus, folks. We're not going to stop here, and I certainly don't want to leave anybody behind. Just have a look at that. How beautiful is that?
Are we getting up for photos?
No, I just said that. I said I'm opening the doors,
For fresh air.
but not to get